Good afternoon or good morning. Good morning here in LA. Welcome everybody. Great to be learning with you on Friday, Erev Shabbos. Let's light up the darkness. New wisdom candle. Okay. Little verklempt. I apologize for being a couple minutes late today. Joe, welcome Joe in the Inland Empire, Melissa in Great Neck, Bill in Missouri, Gordo in Scotland, Yehudit in South Carolina, Sharon in New Jersey, Tom in PA, Shandor in the Bronx, Tom wishing everyone a warm Shabbos. What is going on here? Okay, I'm over here. And Marjorie in Georgia, Ella in Southern California, Ilanit in Silver Spring, Lorraine in Texas. Welcome, everybody. Yesterday during the questions, Nina gave me the question of somebody who was with us for the first time. Not unlucky day. Yesterday was the first time you're learning Talmud with us. And I would have to say today, pretty much equally bad. It's just, if you're not used to what we're doing here, it's tough to come in, with without the background, and just fall in on this day. Again, we're continuing this discussion of the sages looking at the four kinds of death penalty that are spelled out in the Torah. And which are assigned, to a bunch of different death penalty offenses. But not every death penalty offense has its form of death penalty spelled out. So the sages are examining very carefully which penalty is considered more severe than another, which transgression is considered more severe than another, so that they would be able to assign the correct death penalty to the right transgression, to the transgression in question. It's actually going to be mentioned today that since the temple was destroyed, the Holy Temple was destroyed in Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, by the Romans in the year 70 of the Common Era, almost 2,000 years ago. So a rabbinic court does not have the authority to impose the death penalty. So this hasn't had practical relevance in nearly 2,000 years. And even when the temple was standing, for the court to impose, a death penalty in a murder case. Okay, that was going to happen, although it was still difficult. But a death penalty in more of a ritual type of matter, like desecrating Shabbos, that happened in the wilderness when God made an example of the wood gatherer and the blasphemer. Who knows if it's ever happened since, except maybe in times of exigency. Again, it was so difficult to actually apply the death penalty. Whereas you might have a policy reason to, make it work when you're executing a murderer who is a danger to society, somebody who is violating God's laws, we need to understand that that is a death penalty offense, even meted out by an earthly court according to Torah law. But that was just going to be very difficult to make it happen in the real world, again, because the sages made it almost impossible. Because the warning had to be given by two witnesses to a person right before he committed the transgression, saying not only, we're watching you, but if you do this, it will result in the death penalty. And then the person immediately did it despite the warning, and they saw him do it, and they went through the whole trial, and there wasn't some other extenuating circumstance. But really, the emotional content, as I said yesterday, of this discussion isn't about, applying death penalty to, and distinguishing the daughter of a priest from the daughter of a non-priest. The Torah says because a priest and a priest's family is held to a higher standard, that the daughter of a priest who commits adultery is going to have a different death penalty than any other Jewish woman who commits adultery, right? It's still a death penalty offense, but it's going to be a different death penalty because she's the daughter of a priest. Here, as I said yesterday, we're really, comparing these different penalties and different transgressions, lining them up in terms of severity so that we could figure out what the law is in a case that the Torah doesn't spell out. But it's much more of a logic puzzle than a policy discussion. Enough said. We're near the top of page 51a here in Tractate Sanhedrin, the 24th volume of the Talmud, continuing our discussion of Mishnah number 1 in chapter 7. And this, by the way, is the 1,860th page of our Daf Yomi journey, out of 2,711. So we're basically 2/3 of the way through the Talmud. I know many of you have been here since day one. It's incredible to be on this journey with you. We've covered so many different subjects under so many different conditions. Okay, after quoting this Baraisa, with which we finished yesterday, where they were talking about, well, if a person is subject to if the same crime actually includes two crimes in it, right? Like if a married woman committed adultery and her partner in the adultery was one of her close relatives, so that it would be incest. So that would be two different crimes being committed by the same act, and the two different crimes have two different death penalties. So obviously you can only apply one death penalty. Which one would we apply? Where two different death penalties apply, the law is that they apply the more severe penalty, and that's why another reason they need to know which is the more severe penalty. Okay, after quoting the Baraisa from yesterday, the Gemara now clarifies and discusses it. So the master said in the Baraisa, one might have thought that even one who desecrated Shabbos should be executed by burning. The Gemara asks, well, if she, now we're talking about the daughter of a priest who has a little bit higher standard than just other Jewish women, one might have thought that even one who, let me start again. The master said in the Baraisa, one might have thought that even one who desecrated Shabbos should be executed by burning as opposed to stoning. So the Gemara asks, if she desecrated Shabbos, she is liable to be executed by stoning, just like anyone else who desecrates Shabbos. So why would one think that because she is the daughter of a priest, she should be executed by burning, a less severe type of capital punishment? So Rava says, in accordance with whose opinion is this? It is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, who says that burning is more severe than stoning. It might enter your mind to say that since the merciful one treats priests more stringently, in that he gave them, just priests, Kohanim, additional mitzvahs, right? Priests have additional commandments that other Jews, Levites, and Israelites are not obligated in. Like they can't enter a cemetery, they can't become impure for the dead, they have to serve in the temple if they're able to, and then there's all the laws of bringing sacrifices that only apply to Kohanim. They are given terumah, and only they can eat terumah, and there are conditions for how they eat terumah, etc. There are laws that only bind Kohanim, so they are treated more stringently than the rest of the Jews, and this extends to their families, as we've been discussing. So it might enter your mind to say that since the merciful one treats the Kohanim more stringently in that he gave them additional mitzvahs, the daughter of a priest should be punished for desecrating Shabbos by burning, which according to Rabbi Shimon, the minority opinion, is more severe than stoning. So therefore, the verse teaches us that with regard to the desecration of Shabbos, the daughter of a priest receives the same punishment as the rest of the Jewish people, right? Lest you think, now, sadly, 90% of the Jewish people today, I don't know exactly what the percentage is, but something terrible like that, are not keeping Shabbos, right? And even the people who are keeping Shabbos make mistakes, but people who know that Shabbos exists and choose not to keep it, okay, so they're intentionally desecrating Shabbos. Is that a death penalty offense? Technically, yes. Technically, yes, right? God said if you don't keep Shabbos, that's a death penalty offense. Would we ever impose a death penalty? No. Besides the fact that they'd have to be given a warning and then do it anyway right after they were given the warning. Even aside from all of that, the courts don't impose a death penalty and haven't in 2,000 years. And even besides from all of that, sadly, most Jews in the world today, they don't even know how important Shabbos is. A lot of people will say, well, I'm not a religious person, but I believe in the 10 Commandments, which to them means I don't murder, I don't steal, I don't lie in a court. I acknowledge that God exists, but do you keep Shabbos? Because Shabbos is the 4th commandment of the 10 Commandments. It's a super important commandment. Now, I'm not coming here to tell you that this is such an important commandment that on the books it's a death penalty offense and therefore you should keep Shabbos, although you might want to dwell on that for a second. But I will say in passing, while we're mentioning Shabbos, that it is 100% transformative in your life if you haven't been keeping Shabbos and you start keeping Shabbos. And you can start, work your way into it if it's something you've never done before. Just start by turning off your screens. No phone for 25 hours. You'll breathe so easy. It's fantastic. Have a nice dinner, a special dinner with a challah, and make a kiddush on some wine. Make it special. Stop. Acknowledge all the blessings in your life. If you've been keeping Shabbos, and you know that you're not really keeping Shabbos, you turn lights on and off, maybe you drive, even driving to synagogue, but maybe it's time to step it up. Our journey was very gradual, very gradual. It took many years, but when we finally crossed over, from definitely honoring Shabbos and making Shabbos special and turning off the screens and even going to synagogue. But we said, okay, let's just commit to this and be Shomer Shabbos. That the last little things that we're missing, having an urn in the kitchen, some rules, realizing what mistakes we've been making because we didn't really do the research. And then we did those final few steps. Whew, amazing. It's like every step you make toward God, and particularly in observance of Shabbos, it's amazing in your life. And that's why there's this famous saying I think it was actually a modern poet. Somebody can put the quote in the comments who said it exactly. But more than the Jews have kept Shabbos, Shabbos has kept the Jews. You know, when you bring Shabbos into your life in a serious way, it's just amazing. It's amazing what it will do for you, for your family. I can't recommend it enough. Okay, let's keep going here. Rava says, in accordance with whose opinion is this? It is in accordance with the opinion of... No, wait, I just said that. Okay, so the Gemara asks, in what way is she, the priest's daughter, different from the priest himself? A priest who desecrates Shabbos is executed by stoning. So why should one have thought that the daughter of a priest should be punished by burning? And the Gemara answers, it might enter your mind to say that concerning the priest himself, the laws of Shabbos are less stringent, as acts that are forbidden on Shabbos for everyone else are permitted to him with respect to the performance of the temple service, because there are offerings that when the temple is standing are brought on Shabbos. He's allowed to violate Shabbos only because he's commanded to bring those offerings. So there is a difference between him and everyone else. It's not like he can hang out and play on his phone on Shabbos. But when the temple is standing, they will bring the offerings, the daily offerings, even on Shabbos, and the musaf, the additional offering of Shabbos, which other people cannot shecht an animal and kindle a fire and bring the flesh of that offering up on the fire. Where am I? So therefore, one might have thought that if a priest desecrates Shabbos in a manner that is forbidden to him, his punishment should not be more severe than that of a non-priest. But concerning her, the daughter of a priest, since acts that are forbidden on Shabbos are not permitted to her, like everyone else, as she does not perform the temple service, one might say that she should be punished by burning, since for other crimes like adultery, if she's a priest's daughter, she's singled out from the rest of Jewish women for a different death penalty, burning, which is more severe. Therefore, the verse teaches us that this is not so. She's treated like everyone else with respect to desecrating Shabbos. The Brisa teaches one might have thought that even if she is unmarried and engages in promiscuous intercourse, she should be executed by burning. Now, premarital sex, right? People who are not married, single people who have sex, that is a sin, but it is not adultery, and it is not a death penalty offense, even according to Torah law. But because she's a priest's daughter, you might have thought that she would be subject to the death penalty. And the Gemara asks, well, why might one think this? Isn't it written in the verse, when she profanes herself by playing the harlot? This term is referring to a sinful relationship such as adultery, and not to the promiscuous intercourse of an unmarried woman. So why would she be subject to a penalty different than other Jewish women, or men for that matter? And the Gemara answers, the statement of the Brisa is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Elazar, who says an unmarried man who engages in intercourse with an unmarried woman, not for the purpose of marriage, has rendered her a zona, i.e. a woman who has engaged in intercourse with a man forbidden to her by the Torah, because they're not married. So in the opinion of Rabbi Elazar, the term lisnot is referring to any promiscuous intercourse, but this is not the law, and this is the minority opinion. The Baraisa teaches, or perhaps one might have thought that the verse states her father, only in order to exclude all men other than her father. And the Gemara asks, rather, what case is the verse referring to? Is it a case where she engaged in intercourse with her father? That's incest. If so, why does the verse specifically mention the daughter of a priest? Even the daughter of a non-priest is executed by burning if she commits incest with her father. So the Gemara answers that the prohibition of and punishment for intercourse between a father and daughter are not stated explicitly in the Torah. Rather, they are derived by means of two verbal analogies. As Rava said, Rav Yitzchak bar Avodimi said to me, this prohibition is derived by means of a verbal analogy between the word henna in the verse, quote, the nakedness of your son's daughter or of your daughter's daughter, their nakedness you shall not uncover, For theirs, henna, is your own nakedness, right? You can't have sex, not with your daughter-in-law and not with your granddaughter. It seems obvious, but it's stated there, Leviticus 18:10. And the word henna is in a different verse. You shall not uncover the nakedness of a woman and her daughter. You shall not you shall not marry nor have sex with a woman and her daughter. You could marry this woman or you could marry her daughter, but you can't marry both of them and you can't have sex with both of them. I think the Torah also says it is a depraved plot. You shall not take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter to uncover her nakedness. These are all prohibitions spelled out in the Torah. So they, henna, are near kinswomen. It is lewdness. Leviticus 18:17. And the verbal analogy indicates that just as it is prohibited to engage in intercourse with one's granddaughter and with the daughter of one's wife or granddaughter, so too it is prohibited to engage in intercourse with one's own daughter. The Torah didn't spell it out, but it was very easy to derive that if these things are prohibited, then a relationship which is even nearer to a man is obviously prohibited. Furthermore, it is derived from a verbal analogy between the words lewdness in Leviticus 18:17 and the word lewdness in the verse, and if a man take with his wife also her mother, it is a lewdness, they shall be burned with fire, both he and they, so that there be no lewdness among you. Leviticus 20:14. That one who engages in intercourse with his daughter or granddaughter is liable to be executed by burning. Again, not spelled out, but easily derived because the punishment for incest, even with a less near relative, is spelled out. Since the punishment for engaging in intercourse with one's own daughter is derived from a verbal analogy and it is not stated explicitly, it was necessary for the verse to indicate that the daughter of a priest is liable to be executed by burning, even if she commits adultery with a man who is not her father. Otherwise, it might enter your mind to say that the verse concerning the daughter of a priest is stated to exclude the statement of Rava in the following manner. From the fact that the merciful one revealed this punishment explicitly with regard to the daughter of a priest, and not with regard to the daughter of a non-priest, it may be derived that the punishment of burning does not apply to the daughter of a non-priest. Therefore, the verse teaches us through the expression, she profanes, that it is referring to a priest's daughter who committed adultery with any man, and not just if she committed incest with her father. The Baraisa teaches from the expression, the daughter of a priest, I have a source only for the case of a priest's daughter who married a priest. From where is it derived that she is also liable to be executed by burning if she was married to a Levite or an Israelite or a Samaritan or a Halal, which is a disqualified priest, or a Gibeonite, or even a Mamzer? And the verse states, and the daughter of a priest, indicating that this law applies even if she is not now the daughter of a priest. Even if she is not now the wife of a priest, no matter who she marries, if she commits adultery, she's going to be liable to that penalty. The Gemara asks, because she married one of these men who are not priests, is she no longer the daughter of a priest? Why should her punishment be different in these cases? And furthermore, is it written, a priestess who married a priest? The verse refers only to the status of her father, not to that of her husband. Why are we talking about who she married? And the Gemara answers, it might enter your mind to say that when the merciful one states, quote, when she profanes herself by playing the harlot, it indicates that this matter applies only in a case where she profanes herself now by committing adultery. But in this case, where she is married to a non-priest, since she is already profaned from the outset, from the time of her marriage, the verse does not apply to her. So the Gemara clarifies. If she is married to a man of flawed lineage, she is already profaned. As the Master said, it is derived from the verse, and if a priest's daughter be married to a non-priest, she shall not eat of that which is set apart from the sacred. That once she engaged in intercourse with one who is unfit for her, he has disqualified her from ever partaking of terumah. Terumah is the first part of the tithing process, which is given, in the land of Israel when the temple is standing to priests. Right? Only priests can eat terumah, the first 2% of a crop that is tithed and given to priests. It has to be kept in a state of ritual purity. The priests have to be in a state of ritual purity themselves. when they eat the terumah. Can a non-priest eat terumah? Yes, if he or she is in the household of a priest, right? So the daughter of a priest, the wife of a priest, they are not priests, but they can eat terumah because they live in the household of a priest. And so can a slave. A Canaanite slave of a priest can also eat terumah because they're part of the priest's household. But the daughter of a priest, when she marries a non-priest, then she can no longer eat terumah, right? Basically, when she marries, she leaves her father's household. But if she marries a priest, okay, now she's the wife of a priest, so she can continue to eat terumah from his household. But if she marries a Levite or an Israelite, she can no longer eat the terumah of her father's household because she has joined another household. And if she profanes herself simply by, having sex outside of marriage as a single woman, then she can no longer eat terumah either. That's not a death penalty offense, but she has disqualified herself from eating terumah in her father's household. So evidently the marriage of the daughter of a priest to anyone who is not a priest involves some measure of profanation, and therefore one might say that she should not be punished by burning if she commits adultery, the punishment that is unique to the daughter of a priest, if she committed adultery, since there's this profanation no matter who she marries. Therefore, the verse teaches us that the punishment of execution by burning applies to any daughter of a priest, regardless of the status of her husband. He could be a priest, a Levite, an Israelite, even a mamzer. If she's married and she commits adultery, the punishment of burning would occur to her, whereas the punishment of stoning would apply to any other Jewish woman that is not a priest's daughter who is married and commits adultery. The Gemara adds, and this baraisa is not in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Meir, as it is taught in a baraisa with regard to a priest's daughter who married an Israelite and then unwittingly partook of terumah. She pays the principal as she partook of terumah, to which she no longer has a right because she has married out of her father's household. But she does not pay the additional 1/5, which is the fine paid by a non-priest who partakes of terumah unwittingly. And this is because she is not completely disqualified from the priesthood, because if she were to be widowed or divorced without children, it would again be permitted for her to return to her father's household and partake of his terumah. And as befits the daughter of a priest, if she commits adultery, her death penalty is by burning. Rabbi Meir continues, but if she married one of the men who are unfit for her, for example, a halal, the disqualified priest, or a mamzer or a Gibeonite, and then she unwittingly partook of terumah, then she has to restore what she ate. She pays the principal and the fine of the additional 1/5, as she is permanently disqualified from partaking of terumah. She can't return to her father's household and partake of his terumah again once she marries a disqualified priest or a mamzer or a Gibeonite. Therefore, if she did eat terumah, she'd have to pay the fine. And similarly, if she commits adultery, her death penalty is by strangulation, like the daughter of a non-priest, as she is completely disqualified from the priesthood. This is the statement of Rabbi Meir. And the rabbis say both this one who married an Israelite and that one who married a man of flawed lineage, the disqualified priest, pay the principal and not the additional 1/5, as they do not entirely forfeit their priesthood, and their death penalty is by burning in accordance with the above baraisa. The Gemara continues its analysis of the baraisa, which teaches, Rabbi Eliezer says, if she is with her father, she is executed by burning. And if she is with her father-in-law, she is executed by stoning. Both cases of incest, but a different penalty. And the Gemara asks, what are the meanings of the expressions with her father and with her father-in-law? If we say that with her father means she engages in intercourse with her father and commits incest, and with her father-in-law means she engages in incestuous intercourse with her father-in-law, why is this halacha, this law, stated specifically with regard to the daughter of a priest? Even in the case of the daughter of a non-priest, the law is the same. In the case of one who engages in intercourse with his daughter, they are executed by burning, the father and the daughter. And in the case of one who engages in intercourse with his daughter-in-law, they're executed by stoning, right? Both the man and his daughter-in-law. So rather, the expression with her father doesn't mean incest. What it means is under her father's authority, i.e., she is still betrothed, right? Betrothed, but not fully married. So she's betrothed. She's connected to a man who will become her husband when they complete the marriage. And if she wanted to break off the betrothal, would need a get, a bill of divorce, but she's still living in her father's house. That's what it means under her father's authority. And with her father-in-law means under her father-in-law's authority, meaning she is now married, right? She has married her husband, and she and her husband sort of are living under the authority of her husband's father. So the Gemara asks, in accordance with whose opinion is this statement? If it is in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, don't they say that the married daughter of a priest who committed adultery is singled out for execution by burning, but not one who is betrothed? If it is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, doesn't he say that both the betrothed daughter of a priest and the married one are executed by burning? And the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer does not accord with either one of these opinions. And if it is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael, that we saw on page 50, that we will see on page 51b. I lost my place. Yeah, doesn't he say that only the betrothed daughter of a priest is singled out for execution by burning, but not one who is married? In his opinion, the daughter of a priest is under the authority of her father-in-law, i.e., if she is married, her punishment is death by strangulation, like any other married woman who committed adultery. So Ravin sent the following explanation in the name of Rabbi Yosef, the son of Rabbi Hanina. This is the explanation of this Mishna, i.e. the Baraisa. Actually is in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis. And this is what they are saying. With regard to any act of adultery whose punishment is less severe than the death penalty for one who engages in intercourse with her father, here, in the case of the daughter of a priest, she receives the death penalty of one who engages in intercourse with her father, namely execution by burning. Again, the death penalty applies in all these cases. The question is which death penalty? And what act of adultery carries a less severe punishment than the punishment for incest? It is the case of the married daughter of a non-priest, as the married daughter of a non-priest who commits adultery is executed by strangulation, which is considered a less severe death penalty. With regard to any act of adultery whose punishment is more severe than the death penalty for incest, here in the case of the daughter of a priest, she receives the death penalty of one who engages in incest with her father-in-law, which is stoning. And what case is it? It is the case of the betrothed daughter of a non-priest, as in general, the betrothed daughter of a non-priest who committed adultery is executed by stoning. Rabbi Yirmiyah objects to this explanation. Does the Baraisa teach the words more and less? These words, central to this interpretation, are not mentioned at all. Rather, Rabbi Yirmiyah says an alternative interpretation. Now we're on page 51b. Actually, Rabbi Eliezer's statement is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael, and this is what he is saying. The expression, with her father, means under her father's authority, i.e. she is still betrothed and she is executed by burning if she commits adultery. And the expression with her father-in-law means that she has already gotten married. So if she engages in intercourse with her father-in-law, and she is therefore executed by stoning. And if she commits adultery with any other man after getting married, she is executed by strangulation like any other married woman. Rava says, again, because they apply the more severe death penalty. In a case of adultery, which is simultaneous with incest, we have to apply the more severe death penalty. Which is the more severe death penalty? That's what they're deriving here with all these analogies. Rava says, what is different between the wording of the two clauses of Rabbi Eliezer's statement that allows for them to be understood differently? Either explain this one and that one literally, i.e. that she engages in intercourse with her father-in-law, or explain this one and that one as referring to the authority of the father or the father-in-law. Are we talking about incest, or are we talking about whether she has moved from her father's house to her father-in-law's house? So rather, Rava says, actually, Rabbi Eliezer's statement is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, that burning is more severe than stoning. And Rabbi Eliezer holds that the law of the married daughter of a priest is comparable to that of the betrothed one. Just as with regard to the betrothed daughter of a priest, we raise her punishment by one level vis-a-vis the betrothed daughter of a non-priest from stoning to burning, so too with regard to the married daughter of a priest, we raise her punishment by one level vis-a-vis the married daughter of a non-priest from strangulation to stoning. Rav Chanina objects to this explanation. Doesn't Rabbi Shimon himself say that both in this case and in that case, whether she is betrothed or married, the daughter of a priest is executed by burning? His opinion cannot be interpreted contrary to his own statement. Why are we talking about women being stoned or burned? Only because there's a difference in the death penalty applied to the daughter of a priest versus a non-priest. And because there's this slight difference, we are, deriving different laws. But it's not that, women who commit adultery receive the death penalty and men who commit adultery don't. It's just that men who commit adultery all have the same penalty, unless they're committing incest at the same time. It's just if somebody's joining us for the first time now, they must think we're insane. But let's keep reading. Okay. So rather, Ravina says, actually, Rabbi Eliezer's statement is in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, that the married daughter of a priest is executed by burning and the betrothed daughter of a priest is executed by stoning. And reverse the wording of Rabbi Eliezer's statement as follows. When she is with her father, i.e., meaning she is betrothed, not yet married, she is executed by stoning. And when she is with her father-in-law, meaning fully married and has moved to her husband's house, who, is still under the authority of his own dad, when she is married, she is executed by burning. And the fact that the Tana states the phrase with her father instead of simply stating that she is betrothed is because he was merely drawn to the common usage, i.e. the wording of the phrase, and employed it. Rav Nachman says that Rav Bar Abu says that Rav says the law in this matter is in accordance with the explanation that Ravin sent in the name of Rabbi Yosef, the son of Rabbi Chanina. Rav Yosef said in response, does one issue a halacha, a law, for the messianic period? Since the destruction of the temple, courts do not have the authority to adjudicate capital cases. And this authority will be restored only once the temple is rebuilt in the messianic age. Therefore, what is the purpose of stating the law in this matter when it is not currently relevant? Abaye said to him, if that is so, let the Tana, let the sage of the Mishna, not teach all the laws of the slaughter of sacrificial animals, meaning all of tractate Zevachim, as it is entirely a halacha for the messianic age, since we're not going to be bringing sacrifices until the third temple is rebuilt in the messianic age. Rather, so do we not study Zevachim? Of course we study Zevachim. So rather, one studies these laws due to the principle of study Torah and receive reward, i.e., one is rewarded for the study of Torah regardless of its practical applicability. Here too, study Torah and receive reward. What are you talking about? Why are you only objecting now about this particular law that it will only apply in the Messianic age? Or every other law we've been talking about hasn't applied since the temple was destroyed. Rav Yosef responded, you're misunderstanding me. This is what I meant to say. Why do I need the halacha with regard to this subject to be stated? Is a halacha stated in the discussion of Rabbi Eliezer's statement? The statements of the Amoraim are merely explanations of how to understand the wording of Rabbi Eliezer's statement. But there's no difference between them with regard to the halacha. We're not making a decree of what the law is. We're just understanding some subtle distinctions from the previous generation. The Gemara discuss, right? The Amoraim, right, who are living after the temple is destroyed, right? Because the Mishna is set down in the year 200, more or less. The temple was destroyed in the year 70. After the Mishna is set down, then the sages for the next 300 years, those are the sages known as Amoraim, singular Amora. right? So the temple's already destroyed when they are, discussing and analyzing and offering their commentary. So they wouldn't make a decree of what the law is in a death penalty case. They help us understand what the Tanaim said about these laws earlier. They wouldn't make a new law. They wouldn't derive a new law. And he's saying they weren't deriving a new law. They were just helping us understand. The Gemara now discusses the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael that the betrothed daughter of a priest who committed adultery is executed by burning, whereas the married daughter of a priest who committed adultery is executed by strangulation, right? So again, difference between the betrothed daughter and the married daughter of a priest who committed adultery. Again, daughter of a priest singled out from other women because higher standard for the family of the priests, and difference for which death penalty for adult, because it's adultery in either case, but from betrothal or from marriage. And you're going to see why the penalty for betrothal is actually higher. It's more severe because she's still living in the house of her father, the priest. Once she goes out of her father's house and she's married to an Israelite, she's not living at that same standard of holiness as when she's living in her father's house. She's also fully married and not just betrothed, but either way, if she finds some other man, has sex with him, it's adultery. But it's a death penalty either way, but it's a little, more severe if from betrothal than from marriage, not because betrothal is stronger than marriage, so to speak, but because she's still living in the priest's house versus not. Or versus not. She might have married a priest, but at least there's the possibility that when she got married, she's not married to a priest. Okay. So what is the source for the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael? Right, that the death penalty for the betrothed daughter of a priest who committed adultery is burning, and the death penalty of the married daughter of a priest who committed adultery is strangulation. What is the source for this? It is taught in a Baraisa with regard to the verse, and the daughter of a priest, when she profanes herself by playing the harlot, Leviticus 21:19, the verse is speaking of a young woman who is betrothed. Do you say that it is referring only to a young woman who is betrothed, or that it is referring even to a married woman? And the verse states, and a man who commits adultery with another man's wife, he who commits adultery with his neighbor's wife, both the adulterer and the adulteress shall be put to death. All adulterers. Now, what's interesting about that, perhaps, is that the woman is committing adultery. She's married. Right? The man who sleeps with her, he's committing adultery with her because she's committing adultery. He could be committing that adultery whether he's married or not, right? Whether he has a wife that he's cheating on or not, he's subject to this death penalty for having relations with a married woman. Just interesting in passing. That's Leviticus 20:10. All adulterers were included in the category of the adulterer and the adulteress, and were executed by strangulation until the verse singled out the betrothed daughter of a non-priest for execution by stoning, and the daughter of a priest for execution by burning. It is therefore derived that just as when the verse singles out the daughter of a non-priest for stoning, the Torah states that the reference is to a woman who is betrothed and not married, so too when the verse singles out the daughter of a priest for burning, it is referring to a woman who is betrothed and not married. The Baraisa continues, the conspiring witnesses concerning the daughter of a priest who come and testify falsely that she committed adultery, and then they're discovered, so now they're going to be subject to the death penalty. And the paramour, right, the lover of the daughter of a priest, are included in the verse, and you shall do to him as he conspired to do to his brother. Now the Gemara interjects and asks, what reason is there for the punishment of as he conspired to be applied with regard to her paramour? He's not a conspiring witness. He's guilty of adultery, but he's not a conspiring witness. So rather, the Baraisa should be read, her conspiring witnesses are included in the death penalty of her paramour, i.e., they are executed by strangulation, which they sought to impose upon her paramour. They are not executed by burning, which is the death penalty that they sought to impose upon her. And this is because it is stated, and you shall do to him as he conspired to do to his brother. That's the punishment of the conspiring witness, which is interpreted to mean to his brother, but not to his sister. This is the statement of Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Akiva says, both the betrothed and the married daughter of a priest are singled out for execution by burning. And one might have thought that even an unmarried daughter of a priest who engaged in promiscuous intercourse, meaning not adultery, but an unmarried woman who had sex before marriage, should be executed by burning. But this is incorrect. As here it is stated, her father. And there it is stated with regard to a betrothed woman who committed adultery, her father. And it is derived through the verbal analogy that connects these laws, that just as below the reference is to the promiscuous intercourse of one who has a bond to a husband, meaning adultery, so to here the reference is to the promiscuous intercourse of one who has a bond to a husband, meaning adultery, and not the promiscuous, lewd sex of a single woman who is not married. Rabbi Yishmael said to him, if the law of a priest's daughter who committed adultery is compared to the law of a betrothed woman who committed adultery, then it can be inferred that just as there the reference is specifically to a young woman who is betrothed, so too here the reference is to a young woman who is betrothed. And this serves as a proof for the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael, which is that only the betrothed daughter of a priest receives the death penalty of burning as opposed to strangulation or stoning. Rabbi Akiva said to him, Yishmael, my brother, I derive from it the fact that the verse could have stated the daughter of a priest, but instead states, and the daughter of a priest, and, with the conjunction and, that married daughters of priests are also included in the punishment. Rabbi Yishmael said to him, and because you derive this from the difference between the term daughter and the term and the daughter, we should take this married daughter of a priest out to be executed by burning. This derivation of yours is inconsistent because if the conjunction and indicates the inclusion of the married daughter of a priest, then it should include the unmarried daughter of a priest too. And if it indicates the exclusion of an unmarried one, it should exclude the married one as well. And the Gemara asks, and how should Rabbi Akiva respond? Gemara answers, according to Rabbi Akiva, the verbal analogy between the law of the daughter of a priest and the law of a betrothed woman serves to exclude the case of an unmarried daughter of a priest from execution by burning, as we've already derived, and the distinction between the terms the daughter and the daughter serves to include the case of a married woman who commits adultery. And Rabbi Yishmael challenged Rabbi Akiva's opinion because he thought that since Rabbi Akiva had said to him that a married woman is included due to the distinction between the terms the daughter and the terms and the daughter, it was possible to conclude from it that Rabbi Akiva had retracted his derivation from the verbal analogy, which would have included a married woman, and instead derived the law only from the conjunction and in the term and the daughter. But in fact, Rabbi Akiva combined this derivation with the verbal analogy. The Gemara asks, and as for Rabbi Yishmael, what does he derive from this distinction between the daughter and the daughter? And the Gemara answers, he requires it for that which the father of Shmuel bar Avin taught in a Baraisa. Since we find that the verse differentiates with regard to male priests between unblemished priests and blemished priests, as only unblemished priests may perform the temple service, one might have thought that we should differentiate between their daughters as well and rule that the daughter of a blemished priest should not be sentenced to execution by burning for adultery. Therefore, instead of stating the daughter, the verse states and the daughter to include the daughter of a blemished priest in the same law. And the Gemara asks, and from where does Rabbi Akiva derive this? And the Gemara answers, he derives it from the verse, they shall be holy to their God and not profane the name of their God. For the offerings of the Lord, the bread of their Lord, they offer, and they shall be holy. Leviticus 21:6. And from the verse, and they shall be holy, it is derived that all priests are considered holy, even if they cannot bring offerings in the temple. Therefore, there is no difference in this regard between the daughter of a blemished priest and the daughter of an unblemished priest. And the Gemara asks, and why does Rabbi Yishmael not derive this law from this verse? And the Gemara answers, Rabbi Yishmael would say, if it were to be derived from that verse, I would say that this matter applies with regard to the priests themselves, who are considered holy, even if they are blemished, but not with regard to their daughters. Therefore, the term "and the daughter" teaches us that the law with regard to the daughters of blemished priests is just like the law with regard to the daughters of unblemished priests. And the Gemara asks for Rabbi Yishmael, what does he derive from this verse? She profanes her father. If he does not employ the term "her father" for a verbal analogy concerning a young betrothed woman who committed adultery, as Rabbi Akiva does. Now we're on page 52a. I'm almost done. Questions or comments, please get them in now. And the Gemara answers, he requires it for that which is taught in a baraisa. Rabbi Meir would say, why must the verse state she profanes her father? To teach that if initially they would treat her father in a sacred manner, now they treat him in a profane manner. If previously they would treat him with honor, they now treat him with degradation. They say, cursed is the one who bore this daughter. Cursed is the one who raised this daughter. Cursed is the one from whose loins this daughter emerged, who profaned her father's household by committing adultery. Rav Ashi says, in accordance with whose opinion do we call even a wicked person who is the son of a righteous person, a wicked person, the son of a wicked person? In accordance with whose opinion is it? It is in accordance with the opinion of this Tana, Rabbi Meir, who says that a sinful daughter profanes her father, and he too is treated with disgrace. The Mishna teaches this describes the mitzvah of those who are stoned, i.e., our Mishnah, back to Mishnah number 1, which we're about to complete the discussion of it. The mitzvah of those who are stoned, i.e., the process of execution by stoning. And the Gemara asks, what was taught in the Mishnah with regard to which it teaches now? This describes the mitzvah of those who are stoned. We talked about that in the last chapter. And the Gemara answers, the Mishnah states this because it teaches in the previous chapter on page 42b, when the trial has ended in a guilty verdict and the condemned man has been sentenced to stoning, he is taken out to be stoned. And it continues on page 45a, the place of stoning from which the condemned party is pushed to his death is a platform twice the height of an ordinary person. And since the Mishnah wants to teach in the next Mishnah, the mitzvah of those who are burned, and it will then proceed to describe the processes involved in the carrying out of the other forms of execution, it also teaches in this Mishnah, this describes the mitzvah of those who are stoned in order to summarize what was taught up to this point. And that concludes our discussion of Mishnah number 1, the challenging Mishnah and Gemara regarding the relative severities of the different punishments and the crime and the transgressions with which they are associated. And with God's help, tomorrow, after Shabbos ends here in LA, and I expect to get on the air by maybe 7:45, 7:50 p.m. Pacific, we'll continue with Mishnah number 2 here in chapter 7. Just a couple of questions. Thank you, Nina. The quote that I mentioned earlier, more than the Jewish people have kept Shabbos, Shabbos has kept the Jews, is a quote attributed to Ahad Ha'am, a poet and Zionist leader who lived from 1856 to 1927. Thank you. And Sharon, what about a single, unbetrothed, or unmarried woman and a married man? So that is not adultery, right? If a married man, according to Torah law, sleeps with an unmarried woman, why is that not adultery? Because a man could have more than one wife, right? And so with this act of relations, sexual relations, that is one of the ways to create marriage. They would have to have an intent to do that, or I guess create betrothal. I think bia, so it's called bia, and it would create both betrothal and marriage. Now, it's not the right way to do it. And the sages would consider that, lewd conduct, and it's definitely prohibited by rabbinic law. But if they wanted to, they could just say, he's going to take a second wife, and they could sleep together in order to consummate the union, and then they'd be married, if that was their intent. So since she's not married to someone else, she's not committing adultery. Since a man, not for the last 1,000 years, but in ancient times by Torah law, could have more than one wife, that would not be considered adultery, and that's why no death penalty would apply in that situation. Lashes for violating a rabbinic decree, that might apply. But again, it would require warning and doing it anyway, despite the warning, in front of witnesses, etc. That's what I've got for us today. And with God's help, we'll be together again tomorrow, Saturday night, with a new chapter, a new Mishnah in chapter 7. And please God, when we come out of Shabbos, may we hear only good news about release of hostages, maybe all of them. Wouldn't that be fantastic? And may the war end soon with a secure and lasting peace for Eretz Yisrael and Am Yisrael. May we only hear good news on Shabbos. May everyone have a refreshing and uplifting and meaningful Shabbos. And we say Amen. Good Shabbos.